Walk with me through the cellar door.
A storm is coming, Francis.
A portal to a more skeptical world.
Cellar Door Skeptics begins right now. Prepare for the revolution with your hosts, Christopher Tanner and Chris Hanna.
Welcome back to Cellar Door Skeptics. Man, I can't even believe how many episodes we've already done in such a short time. Once a week just seems like it goes by too quick, and then I miss Chris Hanna. He comes over, and I don't get to see him for a whole week because his wife hoards him in her house, and she keeps him locked in the little basement, you know, doing chores and all sorts of other husbandly things that he must do.
Once a week, they get to ply me with alcohol and bury me in the craziness that is your house.
We do, and I'm moving, so you know, very shortly here. We'll probably have a short 1 week intermission break where we'll pre-record a bunch of stuff separately and just edit it all together. That way we have a second show for you for that week. But episode 18, that's what we're on. And if you listen to the last episode, we talked a lot about a debate. I guess we didn't talk as much as we debated. Talk about a
debate. We had one.
We did. We had a debate. I debated a gentleman named Aaron Furlong. Great guy, wonderful person, somebody I would have a beer with if he ever came up to Michigan. A great individual. And it was kind of amazing to actually be able to debate him because I had a show called Conversation with Christians I worked on and ran for about 6 months, and he was a frequent individual on there. And if you're interested, you can check out the Atheist Analysis YouTube page, and you can find all the old Conversations with Christians episodes.
Just a warning, those episodes were like 3 hours long.
They were definitely a lot longer than what most people have the attention span for. I mean, hell, I would get bored sometimes too with myself. Be like, Chris, why the fuck are you talking so much? Shut the fuck up. But anyway, last week we didn't have to put the explicit tag on last week, Chris. I didn't have any swear words except for maybe
you had
one.
Like a couple, but it more than likely would under the swear radar.
Yeah, and so I'm moving here. And I'm gonna be able to build a podcasting studio in my basement now because I have a bigger house, so we're not recording in my living room anymore. So we're gonna hope the audio quality will go up just a tiny bit. Not that we're bad, but you know, always striving for improvements here. And we're gonna be actually able to build a studio that Han and I want together. So we're actually next week gonna go check out the house, and he's gonna go, yep, this one or no, this one, and hopefully within a month and a half we'll actually have a full-fledged studio in my basement that we'll be recording out of. But tonight,
the debate.
We have to talk about the debate, and I know you guys are probably all thinking, "Hey, let's talk about the Hillary and Bernie debate." But we're not going to do that. We'll do that for a later show. Maybe we'll make it a special Patreons only segment that you can come sponsor.
Maybe we'll talk about the one when we go see them.
We could. We're going to go see. We are going to go see them as long as we can get tickets. We are going to go see Bernie and Hillary debate. In Flint, Michigan, at the beginning of March, right before the election cycle. And it's funny, I messaged Hannah, I already took the next day off. I already plan on being able to go there. I'm going to camp out. I'm going to try and get pictures with them. And I want pictures with both candidates if I can. I want to shake both their hands and tell them how much that I would like to support either one of them. And I know Hannah's a little bit more of a fanboy of Bernie. I'm kind of caught in between. And we can have that conversation next week. But this week, we want to focus solely on this segment, on the debate I had with Aaron Furlong, because I think it's always good to self-reflect. It's always good to talk about what went on and what happened. And you know, I went back and I listened to the show again, and I made some notes. I had a hard time getting through some of it because presuppositional apologists are very difficult to sit through. But I thought to start off this segment, I wanted to ask Hannah, somebody who had to remain quiet for 2 hours.
Tough, man.
For 2 hours, what his thoughts on the debate were.
I really did. I thought you guys did a really nice job working back and forth off each other. It didn't turn into a shit show. That's one of the things I don't like about debates. Most of the time, when it's an unstructured and they're not professionals, it turns into a shit show. And like you have had in the past, you've had to actually hit the delete button to remove someone from a call, from a conversation.
Only once. Well, God damn it! One time that fucking happened. One time, and nobody will leave me alone about it.
Okay, well, maybe it's not as frequent as I imagined.
There we go.
I just imagine it was pretty bad. But you guys, you had a nice conversation. It was tough for me to sit there and let someone tell me that evolution was a dead theory. That was one of the hardest moments I've ever had on on any kind of hangout in the history of the internet for me. But the questions that I managed to put together, some of them were pretty good as far as stumping a little bit of both of you. I was happy with the fact that I got some good questions from the community that helped going back and forth as far as questions for both. I expected there to be mostly questions for the theists. So that was a fun part. I actually enjoyed that part the most personally because I got the most organic answers out of that. And then some of the confusion that we had from the format that we were going to have was a little bit frustrating. But once we kind of ironed that out, it seemed to work out pretty good. It was the first major debate that I've been part of as far as like a formalized thing. Usually I'm a spectator on those types of things.
Mm-hmm. And for me, it was the second debate. So I had been, I've debated a gentleman named John Mosman. I will release that debate at some point. I got to go back and re-edit it for some of the casualties that were in that debate. But,
casualties?
It was moderated by a gentleman named Max Mills, and so there's some old verbiage from our old shows that I have to get permission for before I can just publicly air them on this channel. I don't own the rights technically to that debate. A gentleman named Max Mills does, so he has to grant me permission to take that and use it for my own before I can just use it. I don't own the property of it.
So what did you think about this debate?
Yeah. But this debate, I thought I did well for the most part. And I have a personal bias. I'll fucking admit it because I'm awesome and I like me, But as I was going back through and listening, there was some stuff I missed. And I figured out there's one big thing the one real big thing I missed that he was talking about. And he talked a lot about, representing biblical authenticity and how he's going to expose the folly of the atheist heart. But he doesn't ever actually go into how. Basically, he claims that a non-supernatural book has less credit than the Bible because of the amount of copies that it has. And he claims the Bible's validity is solely more awesome because there's more copies of it. And I guess more awesome is a stupid fucking way to analyze that.
I prefer to call it a fallacy.
Yeah. And so he's literally was saying, and I missed that. I completely missed it. I didn't even think about that when I'm sitting here taking notes, listening to him talk. But that was one of the big things I missed very aggressively was that I could have attacked that because I know a little bit about how history works and I know a little bit about the way we should understand things and why we give more credibility to one part of history versus the other part. And that was a big point I think I missed personally. I missed the ability to address that, and I think that what we need to do is I need to go back and see if he would like to talk about that on a show, maybe in the next couple of months, because I think that would be a good topic that we haven't addressed personally here on Cellar Door Skeptics, and it's one that I find very passionate about, because, for fuck's sake, he wants to say the Bible's more valid because there's more copies. Well, what if Mein Kampf has more copies of the Bible than the Bible?
It's a classic argument from popularity, argumentum ad populum. It's a standard fallacy. I've actually had some debates with people recently about that exact topic. I agree with you 100% on that.
I think another thing I missed, and I went out of my way on purpose, and I guess I'm giving away my tactics here, and I don't know if I should do that, but...
Spoiler
alert, I avoided having a conversation about evolution and the Big Bang with him, and it's somewhat for two reasons. The one main reason I went out of my way to avoid that is because he does not understand evolution, nor does he have a desire to learn it. I've debated him and had conversations with him before about evolution. He doesn't want to understand it. It was a mute point.
He's like a complete denier.
He is. And it's frustrating. Like Chris said earlier, it is a frustrating thing to have to listen to that because I understand it. And I'm not going to claim the Big Bang is a big, this is a factual thing. But that's where the facts lead to. And he, if you listen, he mixed up abiogenesis and biogenesis. And I pointed that out, and he glosses over it like he doesn't give a fuck. And that was troubling. But I went out of my way to avoid having those conversations because the whole point of the debate was whether the Christian God of the Bible is something we should logically believe in or not. It's not whether evolution is true or not. That's just a bad thing. I could have made a case for naturalism. Our friend Justin Schieber is really good at making a case for naturalism. I've heard him debate on several occasions about naturalism, And he's very good at it. We could have gone that route, but I saw it as a pointless endeavor with Aaron because it was just going to be a big argument, and I felt that it was detracting or moving the goalposts.
A lot of times when we have these debates and these conversations with people, they usually devolve into that basic conversation anyways. It's the deistic perspective. Like the whole point of this debate is there evidence for the Christian God? And so you guys did a little bit get into that, the existence of God, the way back version of God versus that personal Christian God, the one that I always try to keep people on, but I couldn't corral you too much because I didn't want to butt into the conversation because you guys were doing pretty good back and forth, but like that is something that I know some people have complained about, and they're like, well, you guys didn't talk too much about the Christian God, so that's something that we could talk about in the future.
Yeah. And you know why we didn't talk about the Christian gods? Because Aaron wanted to avoid that. There was a reason for it.
Apologetics naturally leaves the Christian God and goes into the logic behind the existence of God. And so that's why I wanted to see what he would put forth for the existence of the Christian one. And it's usually argument from popularity.
He won't do that. And it's funny. And again, here's another thing, and I'm sure Aaron will probably listen to this and bitch at me about this, but I mean, I specifically called him out before we went to the debate, like months beforehand, and said, I will not debate you on a deistic God. If you present a deistic God, we might as well just end the debate because I won't debate you. Not that I don't want to debate whether there's a deistic God or not. I just don't give a fuck right now. And you want to debate and you want an interesting debate. Well, I'm not going to debate you on the deistic God because I know you don't believe in a deistic God. I know that for a fact. I know you believe in the Christian God. That was the whole point of the debate, was to go after the Christian God. And he uses his knockdown argument, is what he calls it, is without God, we can't prove anything immaterial. You have to have these three things, the laws of logic, the laws of morality and ethics, and he goes into how he says the Bible says God told us he exists, therefore he exists. And we can't believe anything without the laws of logic, and the laws of logic can't be formed without an immaterial or basically an outside of existence being. And it's funny because his apologetics mixes a lot of those arguments. He's not just using presuppositionalism for that. He kind of moves into some of that cosmological argument, and then he kind of jumps and jiggles a little bit. I think I called him Jello. I probably shouldn't have done that, but I think I did call him Jello. And one of the points I think I missed too, and in a second we can go into where I think I succeeded, in my opinion. But one of the things that he missed, or that I missed in debating him, was he kept saying God can't lie. And I did go after him about that, but he never really addressed why God can't lie in his opening statement or his rhetorical. He just says he doesn't care, that it doesn't matter what it is that God can and can't do. And that's the heart of it to me. To me, right there, that says, Aaron, you're God. I'm sorry. If you don't care about that, what are you doing? What are you doing having a debate with me? I'm debating you on why I don't believe, and I gave you valid reasons, and yet you just ignored it.
Well, it's the assumption that he's perfect, and that perfection is something that cannot be violated. Well, I mean, I love to bring in the Epicurean conversation where it's just like, what is the problem of evil and stuff like that. And you guys didn't really get too much into that, but those are places where that usually devolves to. But once again, this wasn't the deistic God, the existence of like the God, the prime mover, the beyond the Big Bang, the first mover. This wasn't that conversation. It was with the Christian God. So I didn't want to form the questions in that direction. I wanted to let the audience have their stuff. So like, if in the future, I would love to actually be part of it. So this could be something where we could do like a 2-on-2 and find someone else. Because the Michael Shermer, Donald Prothero debates are a lot of fun. And so we get a little more science, and then you obviously have a lot more experience in the evolutionary or the theistic stuff than I do, because I have never really been a believer. That could be fun too. Like everyone, let us know what you think. Let us know what you thought. Would you like more of a scientific end to the debate, or would you like more addressing to like that deistic God? Or were you not satisfied for the either argument for the Christian God, as the plan for the entire debate was essentially?
Yes, and I agree with you. And I think, one of the main points where I succeeded on is I had other people that I talked to, and people I respect in the community that I was able to bounce some ideas off of. And it's no different than him going to his father or his brother and bouncing his apologetic ideas off of them. And I gave him an unedited copy of the show. I didn't give him. I gave him the video that I asked him not to display because I didn't, put my makeup or clean my house before we debated. But, I gave him an unedited copy. So, if anybody ever questions, you can email Aaron and be like, hey, you got an unedited copy. Did he change anything? And Aaron would have to tell you, I didn't. I literally only edited out Chris Hanna's ums and ahs. That he had ums and ahs throughout the first 30 minutes.
I'm not used to being the lead guy. This was a first time deal, and I screwed it up a little bit. It was still fun though. I enjoyed being the guy that took over for a minute.
Yeah, and so I enjoyed being able to go after him on the different aspects of whether God was evil, and I got to go into whether God could lie. And I enjoyed the fact that he didn't have an answer for me.
The trickster was not.
I was very surprised by that.
Yeah,
I was. I thought he would have been prepared for that, but that one threw him off his game a little bit, and you can tell. And so I don't want to spend too long on the debate. If you haven't listened to it yet, make sure you go back to episode 17, and I think it's entitled Debate in large fucking letters. So that way, if you like a debate, you can listen to it. If you don't, just skip it. The whole episode is a debate. There is no other dialogue. But we wanted to resurrect a segment, even if it's just for a short few minutes here. We wanted to resurrect a segment that we haven't done since we started the show.
It's a fun one, though.
It is, and we don't know how popular it is. We don't even know if you guys like or girls like the episode or not, or that segment. It probably is. I mean, if my wife was sitting here, she would be like, God damn it, I can't believe you used to believe that. That's what she would say, because I surprised her, I think, with some of the things that I used to believe.
I said that like 10 minutes ago.
Yeah. So we're going to talk a little bit about, before we go to commercial, we're going to talk a little bit about crazy shit Chris used to believe. And we're going to come up with intro music, I think, for this. Like, we're going to get an intro music, and you're going to be able to play this. We're going to try and do this once a month, every 2 months, because it is kind of fun. You get to make fun of me a little bit, and you get to kind of understand what some conservatives grew up.
That's the thing for me is we're coming from a perspective here that I don't have. I don't know how many people are non-believers that have really never been, but I'm assuming that number is actually growing in the millennial community, which is awesome. It's a great thing, but we really do need to know kind of the mindset of the people who are raised in the trenches, in the middle of this stuff. And so you used to have to go through Revelations. I mean, you were just slammed and hammered through this thing. And this has always been a very interesting thing to me, because to me, this is more entertainment in the Bible than really anything else. But so like, this is the thing here, the Antichrist and the Revelation. So what the hell were you believing at this point?
All right. So we got to start with just a tiny bit of background. And again, I don't want to spend too long. So Revelations opens up with this. It says, the revelation from Jesus Christ, which God gave him to show his servants what must soon take place. He made it known by sending an angel to his servant John, who testifies to everything he saw, that is the word of God and the testimony of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Blessed is the one who reads aloud the words of this prophecy, and blessed are those who hear it and take it to heart as it is written, because the time is near. So I don't know 100% exactly when Revelations was written. I could tell you that it was written by John, is what they claim, John the Baptist. It was written by him. So whatever, even if he had lived 1,000 years, it couldn't be more than 1,000 years after Christ. And I'm pretty sure we're looking at, 100 to 150 BC or AD tops. I'm pretty sure that's the tops that it was written. But what I grew up, every year, our church would do a look at Revelations, and they would take a different twist every year. But they always would look at it. And, growing up, I didn't have any other religions introduced to me. It was one fucking religion, and we believed the Antichrist was coming. We were taught the Antichrist was coming. I'll probably can, say my fixation on somewhat of the satanic aspect of life and my love for devil imagery and stuff like that probably comes because of this. I actually enjoyed this part of church. It was the one part of church I stayed up and was attentive as hell, and I have fucking notes and everything. I'll be like sitting there writing this out like, this is what Satan will do, and ooh, these are his numbers. I like that. I don't know why. I was fascinated by the death and destruction.
Somewhere Ozzy Osbourne's smiling.
Yes, he probably is. He probably is. And for me, the Revelations was exciting because I was taught that it would happen in my time. That's what I grew up believing. I grew up believing the revelations that the Antichrist would come and he would start his reign during my time. And people would point out signs. I mean, rock music was a sign of the devil, right? My parents wouldn't let me listen to secular music at all until I graduated high school. My parents would take my secular albums and get rid of them. I remember moving up to Michigan from Ohio, and I had 3 secular albums that I had somehow purchased, and that'll remain my personal secret. Nobody else will know that. But I purchased these albums, and I had them hitting really well, and my mom went through my room, and she found them, and I was 15. She's like, what is this? This doesn't look like Christian stuff, and oh my God, they're screaming at you. What the hell is this? And it's like, well, I don't know. She goes, back then they didn't have Google, so she wasn't able to just go Google, hey, who the hell this is. Now she can do that. Before she couldn't do that. I mean, there was something called Alta Vista, and Google was forming at the time, but she wasn't technologically savvy. And so she actually had to go, call people and be like, oh, my son has this one, and this looks pretty bad. And the one had a song about drugs, so as soon as she saw that, it was downright over with. But back to what I used to believe. I used to believe the Antichrist was coming, and I used to look for signs. And we would talk about this. In my house, sometimes at the table, we'd be like, well, hey, this is happening. Yeah, it kind of looks like the sign of the end times. And I don't know if the Christians use it as a way of trying to keep, kids in line, but I found it fucking fascinating.
That's an egotistical thing that I've noticed when it comes to a lot of believers. It's like, I believe that it's going to happen in my lifetime. Like, we're talking a 2,000-year-old thing here. And it's like, it's going to be in my time. It's going to be in my lifetime. I'm going to see it. I'm going to see I wonder if any of those people, they spend their entire lives believing, like, it's going to happen at the end of their lives. If they ever just like, well, darn, I missed it. Maybe it'll happen tomorrow. Lewis Black always talks about the very first time that humanity does everything that's good, all the things that he'd ever wanted. He says it's going to happen the day after I die. And that's my assumption is that the way that the perspective is, it's like people really believe that these things are going to happen. The apocalypse, the hellfire, the damnation, they kind of want it to happen, as bad as it would be, the end of humanity, the end of life, the end of whatever, but like a confirmation of their biblical perspectives. That's kind of scary to me. It's always been a little bit freaky that, like, we don't want the end of Earth, the end of the world, all the people to just poof, into out of existence. I think it is, and and then they leave people behind in the Left Behind series, so to speak.
Yeah, and that was popular, by the way, when I was growing up. That was a staple in my household.
So I've never really known, like, that is something that you were like, this is going to be sweet. When this shit goes down, it's going to be awesome. Like, that's really what you thought?
Yeah, because I mean,
like,
Revelations,
the 7-headed monster is going to be awesome. Well, it kind of would actually.
Yes, I played Doom as a kid too. Ironically enough, my mom didn't know about it. My dad actually let me play Doom, but I played Doom as a kid. I liked this imagery, and so I've gone back and I've read a little bit about the Revelations, again in the last month while I was doing some research for this segment, and I went back and read some of the books a little bit, and I'm like, holy shit, this reads. Once you get past the first couple of chapters of the letters, and you actually get into the predictions and the visions, it's like a movie. It's like a well-written book. I mean, they talk about
LSD, man. That's what I always think of. It's like a drug trip.
Kind of, yes, it is. And I was big into Dante's Inferno. I loved Dante's Inferno. Loved it. I can't read it in Italian.
Did you read the entire Divine Comedy? Or
yes,
really?
I have.
Awesome.
Yes, I have, and I enjoy it. It wasn't easy. This was a lot easier to get through.
Yeah.
But my church would go through, and they would take these different things, and they would take all these different things that you could read about, and they talk about a lamb, and the lamb would be slaughtered, and they had all this visual imagery. And these 24 elders will fall down, and my church went through and explained what they thought this would look like, and they went through and they explained what they thought the 7-headed monster to a point would come to be. But they actually thought some of these creatures would appear and would be here. They literally did think that this would happen. And they would talk about the different seals. And when this seal opened, and when they thought this seal opened, and this one might have, but probably not. And it just, I don't know. For me, the Antichrist was the epitome of awesomeness to a point, because he was going to fool everybody. And I always thought, well, how would I ever know? If he's here to fool, I would never know. So we were pre-rapture people, just so you know. That was the other reason we were excited, is because we believed that we would be raptured before the Revelations. That's what we thought. We were pre-tribulation. That's what our church believed. So when we started seeing these signs, and we knew the tribulation was coming, and we knew that we'd be raptured, what do you get to do when you get raptured? Well, the whole point of being a Christian, right, is to be able to go to heaven, to bow down on your knees and sing praises to God for the rest of your life. We wanted nothing more for the fucking horsemen of the apocalypse to come, because we knew the revelation was coming, and we knew that we would be raptured.
That's one of the things that it's in a few books of non-believer philosophies is like they actually look forward to the apocalypse, and that to me was a major surprise. I always, in my head, just as someone was like, oh well, this is, that's a bad thing, as a confirmation of your religion. I guess that would be, hey, here's the final note. This is a guarantee. You were wrong. You were right. But even to know that I was right, I wouldn't want humanity to end, the world to end in this nature, this level of destruction. So I guess it's my humanistic nature, is that if I was wrong, let's say, all this stuff came to pass, I would still be sad that it did, because it's such a horrible, in my eyes, whenever I've seen anything from Revelation, it's such a horrible ending. It really is it's a horrible ending for everyone else. All the people who are not the select few, and I just feel like I empathize, for the loser a lot of the times. It's one of the things that I like about Noam Chomsky. Is he always empathizes with with the person that's oppressed. And so when I hear of like the divine retribution aspect, I always think of like, well, what about the guys that didn't believe, the ones that are going to be eternally punished or whatever? I empathize. You do
understand that that's where we came in. That was part of our role in the church. That was also a point. I was a proselytizer. I didn't have to do it at school because I went to a Christian school. Everybody there was supposed to be a Christian. I didn't have to do that, but I proselytized. I was very, very much for getting people saved. In the debate, like we talked about, we heard Aaron basically say, "I'm here to preach the word of God as it is, and I'm hoping you'll turn your hardened hearts away." Blah 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 blah. Bullshit. And that was me as a kid. I was excited by that. These end times, because I know what'll happen. You're going to get thrown into a lake of fire to burn and burn and burn forever. And the thought of watching somebody or having to see somebody burn forever, man, you had to be some horrible person. And I could only think of a few horrible fucking people in my life. And the very few horrible people that I didn't even wish them to have to burn forever. I just wanted them to disappear and not bother me or anybody else. But the Bible taught that that's what would happen. They teach this. And I don't care what any fucking liberal Christian says. This is what the Bible teaches. I don't care whether it's metaphor. And now I'm kind of getting worked up here, but this is
really
this is what I grew up believing, and I wanted to save people. And I can actually empathize with Aaron, and maybe that's why the debate was more, because I put myself in that my mind frame that he is here.
You've been there before.
I've been there. I understand his passion. I understand his desire. I understand what he is doing. I get it. I was there. I was that person. The book of Revelations and the Antichrist were the fuel that pushed me to do those things. If those hadn't been in there, my desire would be a lot less. And, I can empathize, and that's probably why I'm a more aggressive anti-theist than other people are, than you are, Chris, because the mentality and the way that you get sucked into this belief and cognitive bias just is such a horrible thing and can do horrible things to people. And yeah, I didn't have a bad childhood. Nobody needs to get that wrong. I didn't grow up abused or anything. But this mentality is hard to overcome. And if we allow children to just not believe in anything, to teach them critical thinking skills, and then let them choose when they get older, we would probably see a lot of this hellfire and brimstone teachings go by the wayside.
Let's do one last little bit, and then we'll work our way out of this segment here. Did you believe like legitimately in the hell? Like, is that something that
yes?
Is that something that you still have to battle with at all?
When I left Christianity, I had a very hard. That was the hardest thing for me. So that's
what I've heard. A lot of people have a problem with that, and it amazes me and it surprises me. It's tough. I've told people, oh, I missed that boat. Well, they're like, dude, you didn't miss anything. That's something that you did not miss. It's okay. It's a good thing actually. And so like you actually had to fight through that, and I figured that's got to be tough, man.
Yeah, because right before I came out as an atheist, or before I discovered atheism, I had a turning point where I wanted to go back to church. And I did go back to church a couple of times. And then I started doing more research and reading. And then my wife basically said, here, listen to this podcast. And I'll give props to Seth Andrew, where, I mean, he is a miracle for me and my life. Because as soon as I listened to it, I was like, holy fuck. I grew up, oh my God, I grew up almost identically. My parents weren't pastors and theologians, but my dad was a deacon. I learned this stuff 24/7, just like he did. And to hear somebody talk about everything, I all of a sudden felt relieved. But then I had to sit there, and the first thing I had to cope with was, we're gonna fucking die and not go anywhere. Oh, this fucking sucks. There's no hell, but if I'm wrong, I have to burn. So I struggled with the death and not going anywhere and just being fucking dead. I mean, I remember, and this is a real personal moment for me, but I remember sitting up in my house, sitting in a chair, listening to Seth Andrews talk about that, crying. Like, just crying, because I didn't know what else to do, because we're gonna fucking die. And I didn't understand how to process that. And then I had to sit there and process through, well, if I'm wrong, if all my newfound friends are wrong, if I'm leading people into hell, how horrible is that? I'll have to live with that the rest of my life.
That's the kind of programming they wanted you to believe. Like, that's the programming, that guilt, that danger and the fear they wanted you to have. And so I'm glad you kind of made your way out of that. It's awesome that you found yourself a nice, comfortable relationship with friends and family and everybody, so that you're not afraid of it. But either way, let's get to a commercial break here for a second, and we can get into the next segment here. What do you think?
Yeah. And so I'll leave everybody with this. Go back and read the first chapter of Revelations. Go back and read it and tell me, do you think that it sounds like how the Mormons got their religion? Because I reread this and I sat here and thought, no fucking way. How did I miss this shit?
Oh, Joe.
He gets a revelation from the Spirit on scrolls. Very similar. But we got to go to a quick commercial break. We got to give a shout out to Alan. Thank you, Alan, for supporting us on Patreon. Make sure if you all are listening to this, want to support us on Patreon, help us produce better content, help us donate to charity, head over to our Patreon page, donate $1, $2, $3, $4 to our Patreon account per episode, and we'll try and improve the content as well as help those in need. We'll be right back with more Cellar Door Skeptics right after this quick commercial break.
Hello, I'm Miss B. Haven.
I'm Demanda Wright.
And we're
promoting secular feminism. And you're listening to Cellar Door Skeptics.
Like what you're hearing? Check out more Cellar Door Skeptics every week right here on Spreaker and iTunes. Make sure you come back and check out new episodes with your hosts, Christopher Tanner and Chris Hanna. And always, remember, prepare for the revolution.
Hi, I'm Ron Reagan, an unabashed atheist, and I'm alarmed by the intrusions of religion into our secular government. That's why I'm asking you to support the Freedom from Religion Foundation, the nation's largest and most effective association of atheists and agnostics, working to keep state and church separate, just like our founding fathers intended. Please support the Freedom from Religion Foundation. Ron Reagan, lifelong atheist, not afraid of burning in hell.
Hi, this is Sharon Bush, newest and most badass host of the Unbuckling the Bible Belt podcast, and you're listening to Cellar Door Skeptics.
Now, back to the show.
Welcome back to Cellar Door Skeptics. Thank you so much for sticking around through that quick commercial break. I'm proud to present an interview with a gentleman named Chris Shelton. He's going to join us tonight to talk about Scientology, if it's a cult, if it's not a cult, and of course, the book that inspired me to bring him on the show. His book's entitled Scientology, A to Xenu. And it's spelled Xenu, which I didn't know that's how they spelt it. I thought that was just the name of a killer whale at SeaWorld. But he wrote a book talking about the 25 years in that organization, and it's something that has touched my heart. And we had never done an episode on Scientology. So without further ado, let me present the interview that Hannah and I did with Mr. Chris Shelton. Welcome to the show, Mr. Chris. I know you don't have any fancy letters in your name like your website says, but it did say that you used to live somewhere other than Colorado. Yeah. So I didn't know. So you didn't live in Colorado your whole life. You kind of moved through Colorado.
Just moved here a little over a year ago.
Just a little over a year ago, you moved to Colorado. So what was the reason for moving to Colorado?
I wanted to get out of Minnesota. When I left Scientology, I left California about a month after leaving the Sea Org, and I moved to Minnesota because there was a woman there that I wanted to be with. And over the course of the following 6 months or so, year or so, I got myself out of the Scientology headspace, but she was still a staff member with Scientology, and so she ended up disconnecting from me. And so every reason I had to stay in Minnesota was pretty much gone at that point, but I was stuck there because that's where I lived. And so when the opportunity presented itself to go somewhere else, I took it. And that's how I got here.
Oh. So to begin with, we want to talk a little bit about, obviously, your book, right? But before we go too far into your book, and I know I'm kind of jumping into the interview here, but for me, I drew attention to your book, actually, through another podcast, ironically enough. Like, I heard about you from another podcast, and so then I was like, oh, holy shit. We've not talked Scientology, and I'll be honest with you, I have a hard time understanding Scientology. And I'm hoping that you'll be able to bring a perspective to kind of bring that human twist to it, because I think a lot of people, when we look at different religions and we see all these different things, we're kind of like, oh, holy shit, what is this, right? Why would anybody believe this? But we're always on the outside. Not very many of us are ever on the inside. And you had, multiple decades of being involved with, I guess we'll call it a church, if we want to call it that. We could call it a cult. I want to be careful not to alienate, I don't know what the 100,000 people left that still believe in it, but so tell us your story. How about that? Tell us a short version. Don't tell us the whole thing, because I want people to go buy your book. That's the whole point of this interview. It's to get people to go buy your book. But tell us a little bit about the short side of how you came into Scientology and what it's like. Okay.
I was pretty much born into it. My parents got involved when I was 4. And then I was kind of raised with it, so that had a lot to do with why I actually got involved with it. I was very sort of open to the idea that it was a good thing. And then when I was 15, I did my first courses. When I was 17, I finished high school, and they recruited me to staff. And I this was in Santa Barbara, California. I worked there for 8 years. And then when I was 25 years old, I moved up to the Sea Organization. And I did that for 17 years. And then December 2012 is when I left the Sea Organization, still a true believer, still wanted to do Scientology. And 2013 was the year of living dangerously for me. And that was when I found out what Scientology was really all about. So, and it's been a wild ride ever since.
Oh, wow. Well, did they, when they were bringing you in and they asked you, to try to you said to bring you in a little bit further, did you actually have any of the major ancestry connections that we hear about? Because we always hear little bits and pieces. They say they have I believe it's Thetans, and they have connections to past lives and stuff like that. Did they give you the full on, you have all these connections and you've got this big thing, or was it more an organic, you're just interested in the organization and you kind of moved in from there?
Yeah, no, it's a slow process. It's very organic. And it's Thetan, by the way.
Okay, Thetan.
Yeah, it comes from the Greek word theta. The way it works is you get involved because they hook you on something that is very, very much something you want to change or improve about your life. And they promise that they can help you with that. And they find people, or they get people into, sort of an emotionally vulnerable moment. And then they get you talking about that, and then they make promises to you that they can deal with that. Whether that's problems with your kids, your job, yourself. You're an introvert. You want to be an extrovert. You're an extrovert. You want to be an introvert. Whatever the thing is, it doesn't really matter what your personal issue is. They have some solution to offer you, and and it usually doesn't cost that much. And then what happens is you get hooked on that because they offer you some class or some service like counseling, individual counseling, and you do that, and it's generally based on fairly common sense principles at the lowest levels. And so you do a class on communication or something, and you feel a little bit better, and you feel like you can communicate a little bit better. And then they offer you the next service, and that costs a little bit more, and it takes a little bit more time to get through, and then you do that, and then they offer you the next thing. And the way it works is while you're doing those low-level services that don't have anything to do with thetans and immortality and spiritual freedom and all that stuff, they start slowly indoctrinating you on the bigger picture of Scientology and how it's actually an entire religious philosophy that encompasses your entire life and will eventually end up giving you personal immortality and what they call spiritual freedom. And that's the hook that keeps you kind of going, because they have these promises of these very, very high level, ultimate sort of spiritual states of being.
And I think that's very interesting. There's a lot to that we don't hear in other places, right? So, there's a lot to Scientology, and I guess you could speak to this probably better than any of us can, but if we had to look at the whole church, and we'll use air quotes that nobody can fucking see because it's a podcast, but, if we had to talk about the church at the different levels that you were talking about, I could see how you could get sucked into something like that. I could see how people who are upset with the modern science, I mean, we look at homeopathy, right? A lot of people are using natural, again, quotes, drugs, and in reality it's just like, okay, if it was good for you, they would certify it. They're not like a conspiracy in the government to restrict all this shit. But I can see how the draw becomes for the different levels within that Scientology. But
yeah, very much so. And they're selling you from the moment you walk in the door. They're telling you deceptive things about what's going on there, literally from the first minute you walk in the door. And the brilliance of Scientology is that the people who are conning you don't think they're conning you. They don't know any better, and so they're part of the con, and then they're conning you. And it's a fascinating thing that happens with it, because it is. There really isn't another word for it. It is a destructive cult, but that means a very specific set of things. I'm not using that word derogatorily. I'm using it as a very specific description of things about that group, right? It's emphasis on money. It's emphasis on black and white thinking, the us versus them mentality that it creates. The fact that there's everything invested in a central leader who cannot be questioned, and that sort of thing. That's what makes it a destructive cult. Those characteristics, and you get sucked in. It's a gradual process. Nobody joins a cult. You know what I mean? Nobody does that on purpose. You're doing it because you want to be better. You want to improve things about yourself. And it's only been the last about 10 years or so that the news has really been out on what this group is really all about. Up until then, people didn't really know, so they were very susceptible to getting sucked into it and buying into the promises.
Well, did you see the new movie that came out recently? It's HBO, Young and Clear.
Yeah, definitely, very much so. I actually know everybody in that movie.
Really?
Yeah, I know all those guys. They're a lot of a few of them are very good friends of mine.
We're talking to a movie star right now.
Well, I wasn't in the movie, but yes.
Okay, by association.
But no, that movie was actually brilliant because it showed in 2 hours, it encapsulated the culture of what Scientology is actually like at its highest levels, and it really gave it to you in this amazing, brilliant way. And I actually didn't, up until I saw it, I didn't think that was possible, to do that. And Alex Gibney and Lawrence Wright actually pulled it off. It's an amazing documentary.
But we're not here to talk about the documentary, right? And I think it plays a good role into it. But your perspective, I mean, you, like I said, you live this lifestyle. It's like, okay, when we interviewed a gentleman named Joseph Casper. He's an ex-Mormon. And no one popular. He's not. He has nothing to do with Scientology. No one popular. But some of the insights he brought from the Mormon Church, you're just like, no way, that's not fucking true. Google, and the next thing you know, you're like, oh man, I feel bad for you. And I complain about my Christian upbringing all the time, but you had Scientology. That was your life for 20 or more years.
That's right. For 27 years, it was intense, and I worked at the highest levels of Scientology, which was the Sea Organization. And there really aren't very many experiences a person's going to have in this world that are more intense than that. I mean, I imagine if you were in prison in Turkey or something, that might be a more intense experience for the time you're there. But the Sea Org it was hell, and there were 3 years of that I spent on the Rehabilitation Project Force, or the RPF. And that is their sort of Maoist reconditioning camp. And that was by far the worst experience of my life, because you're segregated, you are, separate, you're wearing black all the time, you have to run everywhere. I mean, it's a very intense experience. And the whole point of that experience is to mentally recondition you to follow what L. Ron Hubbard says and don't do anything else. And there's some real serious mind control going on in this group. So it's not fun.
So I'm going to ask a weird question, a little off topic. Have you ever met Tom Cruise? Is he in the Sea Organization? Is that I know that's probably my bias or my media exposure kicking in, but
no, Tom Cruise is a celebrity, so he's not in the Sea Organization. The Sea Organization are the guys who sign the billion-year contracts. They are the clergy.
Oh, okay.
Okay. The Sea Organization is the core group of Scientology. There's probably about 4,500 to 4,000 members worldwide. They are full-time, 24/7, dedicated to doing nothing but working for Scientology. Scientology clothes them, uniforms, feeds them, that births them, like everything. It's a paramilitary group that has ranks and ratings and calls each other sir and things like that. It's sort of naval, and it's an interesting group. But when you see any propaganda from Scientology, or like the Super Bowl commercials, and you hear press releases from Scientology, or you're seeing the leader of Scientology, David Miscavige, that's Sea Org. The Sea Org is what produces that stuff. And also the Sea Organization is the group that delivers the confidential upper level scriptures of Scientology. You can't go into Denver org or Twin Cities, or the Church of Scientology of Denver. We call them orgs, organization. They don't call them churches. They call them orgs, right? That's what they call them. And you can't walk into one of those places and get the Xenu story. That's not where you get that. You get that from the Sea Org at the higher level churches. And because the Sea Org is the one who holds all the keys to all the doors, right? And so like the big, huge, Mecca building down in Clearwater, Florida, that's all Sea Org members down there. And in Los Angeles, they have a base. They call it a base of operations, right? And that's where I worked. And the big blue buildings, right?
Mm-hmm.
That big blue building that has Scientology across the top of it that you see in pictures. Yep. That's where I lived. That building is the dorms for the Sea Org members who work on that base.
Holy shit.
Yeah, so that's what the Sea Organization is. It's been around since 1967. Hubbard formed it when he was basically running and hiding from the law. He didn't say he was doing that. None of his followers thought that's what he was doing, but that is what he was doing. And he formed up this group of people to work for him, and basically they worked for him as basically slaves. I mean, they were being paid slave wages. They were being treated like crap. But they all thought it was for the big, greater glory of Hubbard and Scientology, and they thought, and he fed them line after line after line about how they were saving the world and all these, spiritual insights of his. And they followed him like slaves. And that's how the Sea Organization started. And it started on boats, on ships out in the Mediterranean. And that's how it became in the tradition of the Navy. So
that's just crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy. But that was my life. And that's what I joined that group in 1995. And I thought by doing that I was actually contributing to, I literally thought that I was contributing to saving the world. I really believe that. And and so I thought by dedicating myself to that level of commitment that I would be, living a life of sacrifice. I knew that I would be sacrificing things that other people have that I wouldn't have. But I thought that I would be bringing so much good into the world and doing so much to help people that it would be worth the sacrifice. It was a little bit of a martyr kind of complex, but that's what all Sea Org members have,
If we were to look at that, right? We were to look at your life and all these different things that you experienced and that you went through. One of the big things that I always ask, and one of the things that I think draws a lot of listeners, is what made you leave? And you don't have to give the whole thing away, because I it's your book, right? And I don't want people to not buy your book. The whole point of this is to get people to go out and buy your book, because I have mine on order, and I want everybody else to get theirs on order. But you got to give us a little bit of information as to why and what caused you to leave Scientology.
No problem. And by the way, in case we haven't said this, because I don't know if we have, my book is called Scientology A to Xenu, and it is and it's available on Amazon.com, and you can.
And there will be links in my description.
Perfect. Yeah, perfect. So I just wanted to get that little plug in there. Now, I left quite simply because, or at least the thing that set me on the road to leaving was one day I realized, it really just hit me out of the blue, that I was having to tell more lies every day about Scientology and what it was doing than I was telling the truth. And that really hit me upside the head one day, and I was like, holy shit, man, this is really uncool. And because I'm an honest person, and I was doing it for honest reasons. And so when I realized that there's a concept in Scientology of an acceptable truth. And it's funny because you're not telling a lie, you're telling an acceptable truth, right? So like if I'm gonna tell you about joining, staff in a Scientology church, I'm not gonna tell you that you're not gonna get paid. You're not gonna get paid. You're gonna get paid shit, right? But I'm not gonna tell you that. I'm gonna tell you how wonderful it is to help people and how there's sacrifices, but you get all of your services for free. You get to do all the Scientology courses and the auditing, the counseling. We're not going to charge you for any of that. Now, what I don't tell you is that none of the staff members are getting any free services because they don't have the time. Because since they're not getting paid anything, they have to go have another job too, right? So they never have any time to do all these free services that we're promising. But I don't tell you that. I tell you the acceptable truth, right? And it hit me one day that I had gone so down the rabbit hole on this that my day-to-day existence was telling more of these bullshit acceptable truths than I was telling actual truth. And I didn't like that about myself. I didn't like where I had gone. And so I started looking at where my life was actually at and what was happening with it. And this was all in 2011. That this really, really hit me, and so I said, okay, I gotta stop doing this, and so that's what led me out of working for the Sea Organization, and then there was a whole series of events that happened, which I detail very much in my book, that led me to realizing that Scientology itself was a corrupt system, and I needed to get away from it. So it was a long road, because when you're that steeped in it and you've been raised with it and you've been around it that long, it's been most of your life, it's a slow process coming out. It's not something you have a conversation and snap, you're out of it now.
So as we wrap up, there's two things we got to do. We got to do two things, and if we talk too long, it'll just be like they can listen to our show and it'll be your book. And again, I know I've said this like 7 times, but I just want to make the whole point of getting you on here is to get the exposure, and because this is an interesting topic for me. I'll be honest, I have a guilty pleasure listening and talking about science. How I really do, and I'm very looking forward to reading your book in the next upcoming month. But you gotta tell us at least one top secret thing that nobody else knows about Scientology. You gotta leave the audience with one top secret thing, and hopefully it'll be a great taste for them to go out and buy your book.
Okay, I'll tell you 2 things that are not generally known. One, it's not Xenu, it's Zemu with an M.
All right.
Okay. Now that might not sound like that big of a deal, but it's out there. But the other thing is that you only know if you watch South Park and you think you know what Scientologists actually believe or what they actually think. Everything they showed you on South Park or that you'll find in a casual reading on the internet is actually only about 1/3 of the whole story. And there's a whole chapter of my book where I actually put all of it into one single chapter, the entire, from beginning to end. This is what Scientologists actually believe, and this is why they think they're saving the world. And I don't think there's anywhere else, anywhere, that has all of that in one place. So...
Well, awesome. Thank you so much. And it's funny, for this whole time we haven't really gotten into the fact that there's 3 Chris's having a conversation right now. There's 3 of us, so we're the trifecta Chris's, and I'm glad that you've come around to more rational thinking. But some of it is, again, you're able to bring something that others aren't able to bring to the table in terms of exposing what's out there, because it's a cult in all of its sense, and I won't say all churches are cults, but the Scientology is very, very harsh, and it's not something that I think a lot of people understand. And it's very good that we get to see these things, and I'm excited. I get excited. I'm getting, I'm getting worked up because I'm excited that you get to now go experience life, because this is all we fucking got. And at this point, you got it catching up to do. So if you ever come out to Michigan, we'll make sure we take you out for a good time.
Awesome, I don't know if we'll be able to take you out for as much of a good time as you can have out in Denver, because that town is pretty damn sweet.
That's right. You guys come out here, I'll take you out for a good time. Good times, man. And we've barely scratched the surface of what's in my book, because my book is not a memoir. It is a critical analysis of Scientology, and there is a ton of data about it in my book.
I hope you go into Operation Snow White pretty good and heavy, maybe.
Yeah,
awesome.
Yeah.
Operation Snow White was a really cool thing. I suggest everyone take a look at it or read his book, because it'll probably have a better explanation than Wikipedia. So that's just one of the big ones for me. I always read about some of the crazy court cases and stuff they used to do. So check out the book, and we'll have a great time.
So thank you so much for joining us tonight, Chris. We will have all the links. He also has a podcast. We didn't get to talk about his podcast, and I'm remiss about that a little bit. But he has a great podcast, and I'll post the links to his podcast, to his website. Make sure you check out Chris Shelton's book, Scientology A to Z. He has Xenu, but he just told us it was Zemu. Thank you guys so much, and girls so much, for sticking around for Cellar Door Skeptics. Stick around, because we have a lot more fucking fun coming up after this quick commercial break. We'll be right back after this.
Hey, what's up? I'm Steve Hayes.
And I'm Dave Curry.
And we're from Prophetcast.
And you're listening to Cellar Door Skeptics
on the Fox News Network.
They're not affiliated with Fox.
Everyone's a Fox affiliate.
If you guys like what you're hearing on Cellar Door Skeptics, please consider sponsoring us on our Patreon page. Our goal at Cellar Door Skeptics is to help promote more science, skepticism, secularism, and humanism in the world. We want to create better content for our podcast and for you, the listener, all while trying to help promote local activism. We're going to strive to make better podcasts, and I'll tell you what, we're even going to contribute some of the proceeds to charity. So please join us over at Patreon.com/Cellar Door Skeptics to make sure that you sponsor us for as little as $1 an episode. Thank you guys so much, and prepare for the revolution.
Looking for something new and exciting, or maybe just a change from the old Atheist Show format? Cellar Door Skeptics Podcast provides listeners with hours of enjoyment each week on Spreaker and iTunes. Check us out as we talk politics, religion, science, reviews of books and music, along with the occasional interview just for a twist. Join Christopher Tanner and Chris Hanna every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern as they bring fresh content to you. Walk with us through the cellar door as we help you prepare for the revolution. You can find us on Spreaker, iTunes, YouTube, and even on Facebook.
Hey, my name is Jeremiah. And this is David from the God Theory Podcast.
And you're listening to Cellar Door Skeptics.
Prepare for the revolution.
Now, back to the show.
Welcome back to Cellar Door Skeptics. Thank you so much for sticking around with us through that amazing segment where we talked about Scientology with a gentleman named Chris Shelton. He is a unique individual and has a unique story to tell, and it's always a pleasure to talk about Scientology because that's just one crazy fucking topic.
Can't wait to read his book.
No, and like I said, I've already ordered his book. I've got it on its way to my house, so if you want to borrow it, you can, or you can go ahead and purchase your own book and help support this wonderful individual. And speaking of supporting wonderful individuals, there is a friend of ours, somebody who supported me in my past endeavors, named Lucy, and she's had cancer, and I know it's not a laughing matter, but she's honestly had cancer like over 10 times, and she's not even that old. And recently, she got diagnosed again where they think that there's a possibility she could have cancer. Last year, her husband passed away, and he was the sole provider, so she's had to now take her and her kids and put them on Obamacare, and that doesn't quite cover some of the cancer needs. So we posted a link in the description, GoFundMe. It's the first link. If you could spare $1, $2, $5, whatever you could spare, if you could go help her, all the money that is raised goes to basically pay for anything that the healthcare doesn't cost. And I think last time they calculated out, it was like $8,000 or $10,000 is what she had to pay for her cancer, over and above what the government contributed. So, if we all think that universal health care is a done deal, it sure as fuck isn't. And anybody that doesn't want to go to a single payer a single payer healthcare system, or work towards helping those who need. I mean, you shouldn't have to fucking have cancer and not be able to get the medical help you need to live. This is insanity to me, but. If anybody can go spare a few dollars or a couple of shares, that will help boost the reach that she has, and hopefully she'll get some money to be able to cover the cancer medicine.
Yeah, you can see we posted a couple of shares here and there through our Facebook pages on Chris's personal, and on the Cellar Door Skeptics page. So go on there too if you don't want to download or if you don't want to make any donations, or you can't make any donations. If you could just share it, maybe we could get the reach out further. It'd be the best thing we could do.
Yeah. And speaking of science, I found a video game, one that I kind of said, hey, this is reminiscent of my past video game experience, and it had a whole unique twist to it. This came across my Facebook feed, I don't know, about a month ago, I think, and it's called Ether 1, and it's a puzzle game, and if anybody listens to this remembers the game Myst. I don't know, Hannah, if you remember that game or not.
Yeah, I played the hell out of it.
Yeah, remember, it was a great puzzle game. I mean, that was back before they had these fancy one-person shooters where you could blow people's heads off and rip their spines and beat them with each other, or tear an arm off and do something crazy with it.
1993.
Is that when it first came out?
Yeah. Yeah, that was a big deal, because that was like 3D rendered graphic, complete, like nobody had ever seen anything like it, and it was interactive. You could walk around sort of and move things. It was awesome. I was immersed in it, but it was such a difficult game. But this Ether 1 game is a little bit different. You said that you saw it on your Facebook feed. I saw it online, and I saw it on Twitter actually. From Psychology Today had shared it. And so I had shared it a few times, so maybe that's where you saw it. Otherwise, it's just an awesome coincidence that we both came across it. But Ether 1 is a pretty cool game. Basically, what drew you into it? If you want to like kind of go over what the background was about it, and then what drew you into it?
Yeah, for me, the first thing that drew my attention was the fact that it was a unknown game. And then I thought it was like, hey, maybe this is something on Steam. I'm not a big Steam guy. I'm more of a console guy, honestly. But all of a sudden, it started to talk about delusions of the brain, right? And how your brain can trick you. And then it kind of talked about dementia. And it kind of related the game at the beginning of the article and said, hey, this game is very related to dementia. And it's like, well, hold on a second. There's a game that's based on science that has not been popular? What the fuck? And so I had to do a little bit of research. And no, I've not played the game myself. My son actually just downloaded it on our PS4. So he has whatever the PS4 version is. He downloaded it. And he was supposed to play it before I did this podcast. But he got lazy and wrapped up in Batman and couldn't get out of it. But the whole point of the game was similar to Myst. It's a puzzle game, but the big part about it is that this game is supposed to use memories, and it's kind of like a dementia patient, and it walks you through the different steps and the different variabilities that could happen to a dementia patient. And in my opinion, from reading the articles and the reviews and all the things in the psychology today that we researched, it almost helps shed light on a disease that a lot of people don't understand a lot about.
Yeah, it kind of makes it like, what's it like to experience that fragmented memory and disjointed connections, things. Basically, what it is, Ether 1 is a game where the player is cast as a restorer whose job it is to investigate the thoughts of a woman named Jean Thompson, a 69-year-old diagnosed with dementia. So I don't know if you're familiar with any of the Assassin's Creed games or the Arnold Schwarzenegger movie where he goes to Mars. Oh, I'm losing it right now. But anyways, it's a theme that they've had in movies where you could change memories. The Matrix is another good example how you could just learn judo, just download. Well, this game kind of takes that idea of the main character jumps into a chair and they can send you into a dementia patient's head to help reconstruct those people's memories, and then the machine develops a three-dimensional simulation of their memories. So the game was positively received by critics. You know, the team that made it is White Paper Games. There's only 6 people in the whole team, so it's a really small, really indie thing. It's a flawed game. It has a bunch of bugs in it, but every review that I saw, and I went through a bunch of them on YouTube, everything they said, like, it's got problems. There's actually one problem where it makes it difficult to solve the entire major puzzle because of a it's called a draw distance bug, where things pop into existence when you're only a certain distance away and it causes a problem. But they said, flaws aside, this is an amazing game. And so it caught my attention mostly because of the dimension aspect. Because how do you make a game fun and not kind of depressing and have dementia as kind of its main core? And then you had said Myst and stuff. There's some other games that are popular called Gone Home, Stanley Parable, which is a Half-Life 2 type thing. And then the BioShock series is pretty similar to it. It's like storytelling is the most important thing. But that's the game. And so I guess what do you want to take it into for dementia? For me personally, it's about dementia awareness. Is that what you pulled out from the first time you saw this stuff?
Yeah, and that was the whole point of me bringing this game to light, because we're not a gaming podcast. If you want to listen to a gaming podcast, there's the Game Theory podcast over on Stitcher as well. Great friends of ours, great, awesome gentlemen. I brought this game to their attention, actually. They said they're going to do a segment on it, so hopefully they bring us aboard or they let us know so we can help promote it. But yeah, for me it was the awareness. For me it was, how do you make a game interesting enough for people to download and continue to want to be interested in, but at the same time bring awareness? And I guess for me, it's kind of like, I always see dementia as kind of like tripping, right? I mean, when you, not that I've ever done any of those things, but when you do some of those things, it distorts your reality. Well, to me, that I always kind of saw dementia and Alzheimer's as like that. But a lot of times we look at it on a depressed side, and we look at it as a way of not being able to relate to another individual. To me, this game brings a relation ability so that we're able to relate, to understand what's going on, so that hopefully we can either A, find better ways to solve this problem, to prevent it from happening, or to help those that do have it, or B, help us relate to those that do have it, because it is what it is. Until science can fix it, we have to put up with it, and we should at least treat these people as humans.
Yes, definitely. In a society that deals with dementia on a regular basis, I would wager that almost everyone has come into contact with someone in some form with family or friends, and we still treat it as like a dirty illness. It's icky or taboo or whatever. This reason that one for me, dementia scares me. My grandmother had dementia before she passed away, and it scares me that you could kind of lose yourself but still possibly be aware inside yourself. It's like one of the things that I'm scared of for like paralysis, like being awake and aware inside your body, but losing that autonomy and that freedom. Well, that's kind of what dementia just scares people, is because like you could lose everything and not have any control over it. You're stuck, essentially a shell, or it's just you're trapped inside your own body. That's pretty scary stuff. But most people have dealt with it in some way, shape, or form. But it's hard to kind of accept it and try to find ways around it. Our society is very good at pushing things under a rug and trying to hide it and not wanting to deal with it. Like, we'll deal with it in the future or something. That's kind of how I think we deal with a lot of this stuff that makes us uncomfortable. And sometimes we need to directly take it on from the front, as opposed to just hoping it'll go away on its own.
Yeah, and that's why I think everybody should go out and give this game a chance, because to me this game feels natural. It feels like something that we should want to invest in. And they kind of say playing Ether 1 is kind of felt to them like a new illumination about this disease. Most of the things that this individual watched his grandmother go through were missing in its simulation, but was reminded of the helplessness that individual felt.
Was that one of the developers?
Yes. Yep, that was one of the developers. That's actually the reason in the New Yorker article. That's actually the reason why they did this video game was because they saw the challenges that their grandmother had with this disease.
Yeah, I read that too. They tried to find a topic that they all thought would be an interesting topic for their game, and they all had dementia as kind of like a linking thing that they had all experienced, and it's kind of grew from that. I wanted to make a couple of quick things about like the dementia stuff that I was thinking about when I thought about this. It brings to mind things like Dan Dennett's philosophy of the mind and his book Kinds of Minds. I really recommend you check that stuff out. It helps kind of develop what is a mind, the different levels of minds, and small creatures, ants and bugs and birds and dogs and large creatures, the difference between gray matter and cognitive function. And then also the neuroscientist arguments about the free will thing. So our brains are basically incredibly, incredibly complex machines, as opposed to some kind of ethereal or outside a standard biological construct. So we have something special, some X variable that makes us living conscious things, as opposed to just really, really complex things. It's where the free will argument goes. And so like the dementia stuff mixes in with that, and there's some really cool science that you can learn. But I think it's just helpful just to take a look at some of this stuff. And these guys did a really, really cool way to do that. I think that's one of the things for relatability, to make something complicated and hard to learn or even uncomfortable like dementia, but to make it fun and interesting. I mean, in puzzle solving, this game is not a big downer. That's one thing I want to make sure that we don't get out there. It's supposed to be a really cool game.
And as Carey Mulligan says, those with dementia are still people, and they still have stories, and they still have character, and they're all individuals, and they're all unique, and they just need to be interacted with on a human level. And I think that's what this game brings about. But we don't want to spend too much time just on this video game. If you would like, we'll throw the links to purchase the game in the description. We'll throw the links to the articles that we reviewed into the description. But we got to move on to the last topic of the night, because tonight we're going to tackle the Oregon militia. And yeah, I know we're late to the party, right? You're going to tell me, hey, Chris, why the fuck didn't you have this conversation well before now? And I opposed having this conversation on purpose. I did. I didn't want to divulge into what was going on right at that current moment. I wanted to watch the thing develop, watch it play out, and I wanted to see where it was going to go versus just chiming in and giving my opinion. But now that it's over, for the most part, we can dive into what the impact is, how it affected people, and did they really fucking change anything?
Oh, I like what you didn't want to jump onto the bandwagon immediately. That's one of the reasons why I actually don't like try not to share or jump onto to stuff too quickly because of that, especially something like this, because there's so many different things that are happening with it. Like there's tons of people, tons of stories, and in today's immediate news age, you see people trying to be the first person to put something out. And we do see a lot of things being retracted versus what it used to be, where they would verify 100% the truth before they publish something. And it's usually a bit more trustworthy. If it was journalistic press, it was legit. Nowadays, you kind of have to take a look at a few different places before you can consider it truth.
And so the Oregon Militia, for those who don't know, is a militia that formed in Oregon that basically went and took over a bird sanctuary. They went for a demonstration on a Saturday afternoon at the beginning of January and changed their minds and decided that they would occupy it after the demonstration was done. And their main reason that they said, they gave a lot of bullshit reasons, but their main reason they said was they were protesting because of some ranchers that were in prison. And what happened to them is they got caught poaching and using government land. And what happened is the government said, hey, you can't do that. So they burned a bunch of the land. And then the government found that out and had a trial and basically convicted them of arson and said, okay, well, this is the sentence. The minimum is X amount of years. Well, they got released after, I don't know, a couple of months or something like that. And then somebody on a higher level found them and said, oh, hold on a second. These two ranchers, they need to go back to jail because they need to serve their full sentence. And that's what they said they originally were protesting. But their protest kind of evolved into, well, hold on. The government's stealing too much of our land. The government has too much control over us. And that's kind of how the whole thing happened. And so I don't know a lot about Oregon or whether the government's been taking land. And they claim that they were forcing them to go back to jail or pay or give up their land for really cheap. And the people that were going back to jail actually openly admitted and said, hey, that's not the case. Just leave the sanctuary. We don't care. We got caught. We're going to go do our time. Thank you. Stop making a big deal out of this. And they could do that for whatever reasons, but they did say those things. And this militia group decided they were going to continue to occupy this place and make a big, national stink about it. Now, maybe this became an international stink. I don't know. I didn't pay attention to international news because it disturbed me at home, and I just said, good Lord, what the hell is wrong with these people? They're white, armed men and women taking over a bird sanctuary because the government's taking their land.
That's the one that gets me every time. Is like they were like, the place that we're going to take over is basically a federal building that was no longer in use anymore and partial bird sanctuary. I know that the Brits were paying attention because one of the articles that you shared and gave me, I believe, was from the Guardian. So we know that they're at least paying attention a little bit to some of our wackier and goofier problems that we've had when it comes to this kind of armed uprising. And it's another place where a lot of the, I guess, other first world nations look at our gun laws and they just kind of shake their head and say, you guys really need to kind of tidy things up a little bit over there. And that's basically where most of the arguments about this Oregon militia stuff is kind of turned to. I haven't heard a lot of people really talking about that initial problem that you mentioned where the government and some ranchers were disputing about open land and they had gotten the land and reappropriated it into, state and federal land as opposed to letting it be free ranching and free grazing land for ranchers as it had been.
It wouldn't be free. It wouldn't be free. It would be owned by them.
I know.
It's not free. It's their land.
Yeah, and so they couldn't. I mean, there's a variety of things, and it was like it's a big bureaucratic red tape, and it was probably full of horse shit, and there's probably reasons for both sides to be angry and sticklers and stuff. But it seems like to me that the Oregon militia and the other groups of people, because there were other militias that came in, they used it as like a springboard platform, kind of like, oh, this, and now I'm gonna put out my pet project, my Second Amendment stuff, and then I think it kind of got away from everyone, and it lost its initial meaning and purpose.
So there was a couple of things we wanted to talk about. One of the big things that I discovered was what it felt like was a libertarian, I guess we'll call it a libertarian fairy tale. One of the articles I read talks a little bit about, kind of the background to this. And they're claiming, again, like we talked about, that the government's forcing them to sell their land or stealing their land or telling them they can't use the government land for what they want to use it for. And they want less government regulation. And I think that kind of is a bigger symptom of where our society has gone. We've as a nation, we've embraced, nationalism. We're the United States. Say our national anthem. Every fucking sporting good place has that, right? I mean, it's not like it's just some miracle thing that random people say. It happens at all these different places. And I think that some of this leads into that revolutionary idea that the Bundys are saying, hey, the government's taking over. They're ruining the Constitution. We hear this in our with the gun law discussion all the time, and I don't want to get into that right now. But we hear that all the time, and so we hear the same thing from them. And that's why they took over a wildlife refuge. Because, hey, if they took anything else over and kidnapped people, they would probably go to jail for longer once they got caught. So they obviously knew the outcome of what could happen, and they were at least being smart about what they were choosing to inhabit. But they continue to think that the supremacy of the government over their individual rights is ruining them. And I don't see it. I don't see that. I don't get the conspiracy aspect to it. And maybe, it's because I'm not associating with specific privileged white people. I understand I'm privileged. I get that. These people obviously don't fucking get that. They're a bird sanctuary with guns, taking it over while people are getting killed in the street. Well, or children are getting poisoned in Flint. Stop protesting fucking land. Let's go protest whether these kids are getting poisoned by the government versus some land that's being stolen. So if you want to make a difference, libertarians and militia, you want to protest something and create an armed occupancy, go the fuck to Flint. Take over the government in Michigan. Say, screw you, Snyder, you're poisoning our damn kids. Let's do that instead of taking over a bird sanctuary.
Yeah, they could definitely pick a story or a message that they get a lot more people behind. But here's a funny thing. This is from the newcivilrightsmovement.com. And I don't know if this is a very progressive page. I don't know if this is a more conservative page. It's one of the ones that you found and you put in our little outline that we use. And now that it says on here, now that they've been captured, they all say it's all a misunderstanding. Basically, the Fed is saying, no, you guys, you said this was supposed to be an armed uprising. And now that Amon Bundy is saying, my only desire is to be home with my family and take care of my wife and children, he's changing tune, and he's saying that this was never meant to be an armed uprising or an armed standoff, he said.
But yet he had guns.
and they told people to come, bring guns and snacks. I love that, bring snacks. But
they didn't have nothing to eat,
Well, it's interesting that they're changing their tune. I mean, if you want to go down as a martyr, the Fed arrested us and everything, you don't change your tune. You stand up and you keep fighting. So this kind of shows basically the strength of character that these guys have. Is they want it their way, but they don't want to make sacrifices, and they don't really want to, fight and go down the way a martyr goes down. And so, to me, they've lost any kind of credibility they have just by singing such a sad tune so quickly.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny, in that article you cited, at the end of it talks about what he said, right? What he publicly said is, he says, this is never meant to be an armed standoff. Please do not to make it about this. Go home to your families. Well, what he's talking about, what he's fucking talking about is that they left to go to a rally, didn't think anything would happen, and the FBI came in and said, I don't think so, buddy. You guys are stuck here now. We got you, and they took them to jail. And so there was talk about, well, hold on, you're not going to let us out? Because that's what happened. Is the judge basically said, no, you don't get bail. You're stuck in jail to the trial. And so there's pleading with the people that are still stuck at the sanctuary to go home. Well, those people don't want to leave because the FBI already said, hey, you had your chance. Now we're going to arrest you and prosecute you. And that's what this whole big thing is. People have been whining about over the last, couple of weeks. And I don't even know what they're charged for. One of the Guardian says they're being charged for conspiracy theories and threats and force and intimidation. And I honestly don't understand that. I don't know what they're going to get them for. I can't imagine it's legal to occupy a government land. But, there has to be something they can get them for. But the biggest thing is should they be let out of jail? Should they be given the free pass, per se, to have the innocent until proven guilty? I mean, we have the YouTube video, we have the Facebook, we have the other videos that have surfaced of them saying things. Do we have to grant them, freedom, or are we allowed to keep them in jail because they're genuinely a flight risk?
Oh, that's one of the things. The self-incrimination for this group is really bad. There's so much data and evidence of them saying their intentions and saying what they planned on doing, and then there's actual like live footage of them in the building doing all the little things that they were doing. There's no question that they're guilty on whatever charges the state decides to bring, that are valid charges to bring against them. Like you said, we're not law. We're not trained in law. We haven't really seen anything written about that stuff. So as that comes out, we'll see it, obviously. But I do not think that they are good for bail. They should. I think they are definitely flight risks. And then the other thing, when you were talking about basically the Fed said you guys can't leave. We're going to arrest you as soon as you leave, but we're not going to come in there and storm it because we don't want to turn into another Waco compound where everybody dies. But the spokesman for the group, Robert Lavoie Finicum, he took off. He was out driving it, and they basically he thought that nobody would mess with him. It looked like, and they had gone and driven around, and obviously it turned into a high speed crash and into the snow on the road and stuff. And they released the footage. Did you watch the video?
I did watch the video.
Okay, so to me, the big question on that is like, the guy basically jumped out of his vehicle when he's been surrounded by a bunch of federal marshals and federal officers and stuff. And he didn't just like sit down, lay down, stop moving. He's out. And when he gets shot, to me, from what I saw, he's reaching into his jacket. He's grabbing the pockets and doing stuff. You don't make any sudden moves when you've got officers' weapons pointed at you. Even if you are in the right, you don't take a chance at them actually having a reason to shoot you because you're moving too quickly or whatever. So, I mean, what's your, I guess, impressions from this video? Do you think that this was some kind of conspiracy, or this guy makes some bad decisions?
I would say the guy made some bad decisions. I'll be honest with you. I have a hard time when police shoot anybody, personally.
I do too.
I understand, and I've been called out on this before, about police are trained to shoot to kill. If somebody has a gun, you shoot to kill. It's not like this question, right? But the biggest thing that I have against it is maybe we should be training our police to shoot to put them down onto the ground. So even if he was reaching in his pocket for a gun, shoot him in the leg, drop him to his knees. If he was looking for a gun, chances are by the time you get over there, he ain't going to get it. If he does, you can shoot him then. And I do honestly have a problem with them shooting him. I do. But I can understand why they would be justified by it. I get that. I mean, they were walking around with heavy gun armor, or heavy guns.
It's a militiaman who was part of an armed standoff at that time. They're scared this guy's got weapons.
Yeah, and they openly, flat out said that if you come to take us over, we will not be afraid to use violence. They openly said that. That individual said that. That was news well before this happened. And so if you were to take all the stuff up and line it all together and say, okay, well, this shouldn't happen, but I can see why it would happen. I don't feel as bad that this gentleman got shot and died because of it. And it was funny because their lawyer or whoever their news spokesperson is tried to relate it to the Tamron Rice shooting, right? Geez. That's what they were trying to relate it to, and it's like, no, dude, no, there's no fucking way. Any of the cop killing that has happened, where they've shot these innocent black people, has not been because they had pre-knowledge that these people were armed. All that shit was based on was assumptions. This one, they knew this white motherfucker had a gun. They knew this white motherfucker was part of a group that threatened to kill people if they came and took the sanctuary over. There's no question in that this guy was in the wrong. And you're right. Should he have laid down? Yes. Why did he not? We probably will never know. Hopefully somebody will investigate it. I do hope they get investigated, because it would be nice to understand why somebody would think that they should just shoot to kill unless they knew he had a gun. When it comes down to it, this guy put himself in a horrible situation and had no interest in saying, hey, you know what, leave me alone, I don't want to die.
Yeah, I can't understand. It could be, I'm not going out like that type thing, where his ego and he's not gonna submit. He'll never submit and give up or whatever. That could have been it. That could have been his way of just going out like, a hero in his eyes, or going out as a martyr. Because, I mean, I guarantee you his death is be held up by people who support their cause to be a martyr's death. But In that video, everything. I mean, the officers and everybody, they were in their rights as far as I could tell. I didn't see anything sketchy. There's nothing really conspiratorial about this. This is a guy running from cops in his truck, and he gets pushed off the road into the snow, gets out, and runs off to the side, and sticks his hand inside of his jacket. Like, it's pretty clear cut on that end. So, taking that with the rest of their actions and stuff at this Oregon group, I mean, these are a bunch of people who have made a bunch of bad decisions, and now they have to live with it. Now they have to live with their decisions. Whether or not they did it for the right reasons, and maybe there is some truth to some of the stuff that they have been saying about the government encroaching on their rights and stuff. I just don't think they did it the right way. I've always gone through, one of my favorite movies about this type of thing is a movie called SLC Punk. And the main character, Matthew Lillard, at the very end of it has a nice monologue. He's a punk, but he decides at the end to go to Harvard because he's a genius and be a lawyer. And he says, the only way you can really make a difference is by fighting the system inside. And in the end, that's really what it takes. And these guys want to make a difference. You get involved with lobbying. You get your NRA funded congressman or somebody to pick up your idea, the pet project or something. You fight from the inside. You don't do the armed rebellion thing. It always ends this way.
Well, that's how we're going to end the show tonight. Whether you support it or reject the armed militia, I don't know. We'll be talking next week a little bit more about gun rights, a new law that the Republicans in Michigan are trying to push forward. And I don't know if you heard this yet, Chris, and this is new, but they're trying to basically say that you don't need to conceal and carry to conceal and carry. You could just walk around with your fucking gun concealed and no big deal. So we're going to talk...
Sounds like something Dick Snyder would put out there.
Yep, a little bit. So we're going to talk about that next week, and we're going to talk about the Raz. So thank you everyone for supporting Cellar Door Skeptics. Make sure you check us out on Patreon, on our website, anywhere you can find us, Stitcher, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, fucking Pinterest. You can find us almost anywhere you can find social media. And if there's one we're not on, send us a message. Tell us, hey, get the fuck on this one, because we want to see more of you. This has been another episode of Cellar Door Skeptics. Have a great night, everyone, and we'll see you next week, Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern.
You've been listening to a presentation of Cellar Door Skeptics. Check us out on Spreaker, CellarDoorSkeptics.com.